Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a Tic Tac Toe game. So in this game, I'm going to make it so that the computer plays against us. So yeah, I'm going to be using object-oriented programming because I'm going to have multiple classes. I'm going to be using these four classes to make this game work properly. So we could start in the game class. The first thing that we're going to want to do is make a private data field for our board. So it's going to be character. It's going to be a two-dimensional array, and then we're going to call it board. Just get this real quick. Alright, now once we have this, we're going to make the second row the same thing. So we could just Control V. Alright, nice. And then for the last row, for the third row, we're going to want to make it just an empty space. And I'll show you why right now. Okay, so that's going to be our board. So obviously the first thing that we're going to want to create, the first method that we're going to want to make is to print the board. So we're going to make this void method. We're going to call it print board. So what this is going to do is just simply have a double for loop. 0 I is less than board dot length I plus plus. Let's just get this and put it in here. We're just going to switch the I to a letter J. We're going to put board I right here. And then we're going to switch this to a J. And then we're just going to print out what character is at that certain index. So we're just going to do board I and J. Okay. Then outside, let's see, right here, right after this line, I want to do system.out.println. Cool. Forgot it has right there. So this should print out the board. So let's go right here. We're gonna have to instantiate the game class. I'm gonna call it game. Alright, and then we could just call the method that we just made. So it was print board. So you see that we have this right here and it doesn't look like a board. So what we're gonna have to do is go back to the game class, and right here we're gonna add an if statement. So we're gonna say if j is less than 2, what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to print just a straight line. So now that when we run it, it looks like a tic-tac-toe board. So that's working nice. And the reason why I put a if statement in here is because let's say if I put a 3, it would give us this, which doesn't look like a tic-tac-toe board. So this if statement is basically putting lines in between the columns, so it could look like a tic-tac-toe board. Alright. So in the game of tic-tac-toe, we know that there's row wins, there's column wins, and then there's also diagonal wins. So we could go to the game checks class, and this class is gonna serve as a class in order for us to do like checks, like victory checks. So the first one that we could do is public. They're gonna be Boolean because they're gonna have to return if it's true or false, because if there's a victory, it should return true, and if there isn't a victory, it should return false. So we're gonna do public Boolean. We're gonna call this row victory. And for this, in the parameters, it's gonna take a character, and it's gonna take a two-dimensional board, which is the one that we're playing on. I can just call it board. Okay. And inside this row victory, we're gonna want to loop. We're gonna have to create a for loop. So we're just gonna, in I is equal to 0, I is less than board dot length, do I plus plus. And then in here, what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to make an if statement. So we're gonna do if board at I 0 should be a 0. I0 is equal to the letter. We're gonna do and board I1 is equal to the letter. Just go ahead and copy this. Gonna make another one. Then this is gonna be 2. So in this if statement, this is gonna return true. And if not, we could just return false. Alright, so basically this is looping through every single row and checking at that certain index. And if they're all the same matching letter, so whether that be X or O, then it should be victory, so it should return true. And if they're not all the same letters within, say, the same row, then it isn't a victory, so it should return false. So we're gonna do the same thing for the column. It's gonna be almost the same thing, except we're just gonna have to swap the I and the O and the 0. So we're gonna do 0. We're gonna do I, and same thing right here. We're gonna swap that with the 1. We're gonna swap this with the I, and finally the same thing right here. We're gonna do I. Okay. So now the last check that we're gonna want to do is for the diagonal. So it's gonna be Boolean as well. We're gonna do diagonal victory, and it's gonna take a letter. It's gonna take a board as well. Board. Okay. So in order for there to be a diagonal victory, of course the middle of the board has to be taken up. So we could do if board at 1 1. If it's not equal to a letter, then we could just automatically return false. Then we're gonna do if board the upper left hand corner is equal to letter, and the bottom hand right hand corner, if it is equal to the same letter, then we could just return true. Let me just copy this. Board 2 to, oh, we forgot. Just do that. Do letter. Okay, but for this one, we're gonna want to check the other diagonals. So we're gonna put a 2, and then for right here, we're gonna want to put a 0 and true, and then we can just return false if that's not the case, if it's not a diagonal victory. Okay. So this class, again, it's checking if there's a row victory, column victory, or a diagonal victory. So this is what the game checks class serves for. Now we could move back to the game class. Okay, so now that we got the board printing out, the next thing we're gonna want to create is to make a actual move. So if we want to put an X on the board, we're gonna have to create that method. So it's gonna be a public void, and then we could call it doesn't really matter what we call it, but in my case I'm just gonna call it make move. So I'm just gonna call it make move, and the make move is gonna take the row that we choose and the column that we choose. So we do this, and then okay, so one thing that we have to take into consideration is when we're making a move. We gotta make sure that we're choosing a valid space to put it in. So I'm gonna head back to the game checks class, and I'm gonna make a method that's gonna tell us if a space that we choose is valid or not. So it's gonna be the same thing, boolean, and I'm gonna call it is valid, and then the is valid is gonna take a row and a column, and then it's also gonna take a board. Okay. And the first check there we're gonna wanna make sure is that we're choosing a space within the bounds of the board. So it can't be like it can't be, let's say, like column 4 row 5, because there is no column 4 or row 5. So how we do this is we're gonna do if row is greater than or equal to 0 and row is less than board dot length. Should I have that? Okay. Then we're gonna also check if column is greater than or equal to 0 and column is less than board dot length. Okay. I forgot the G. Dot length. Okay. So this first if statement is checking if it's within the bounds of the tic-tac-toe board. Alright, and then the next check we're gonna want to see if it's a valid spot, and we define what's valid and what's not valid by if it had an underspace right here, like this first one, that's a valid spot because it has an underspace, it's empty. And same thing for right here, since it's empty right here, it's also a valid spot. So we're gonna do a if statement. We're gonna say in the if statement, if board at row and column is equal to empty, say underspace. And let me just go ahead and copy this real quick. Then we're also going to do and if it's equal to just an empty space, then we could return true. If that's not the case, then we could just return false if it's not a valid space. Okay, so now that we have a method that checks if it's valid or not, so we could call this method right here when we're trying to make a move. So so since we're gonna need a method from the from the game checks class, we're gonna have to instantiate it. So game checks, and I'm just gonna call it checks, is equal to new game checks. All right. So when we make a move, we're gonna want to take the row and the column that we're gonna want to put the X on, and then so we're gonna do a if statement. So we're gonna do if checks what I just instantiated right now, if checks dot, and we called it is valid. So we're gonna do is valid. So let's do that. Let's see if it's calling it. Yeah, I don't know what might be the problem. Alright, let's just continue. So if checks is valid, and we're gonna take the row, the column, and the board. Oh yeah, I see. I put an A instead of E. So there you go. If checks is valid, so we're taking the row, column, and this is the board right here, the one that we have up here. So if it is valid, then we could make our move. So I'm gonna do board. So if the spot that we chose is a valid space, we're gonna put the X right there. So that is gonna become X. Okay. Then we could just do a else, and then we could just doesn't matter what we print, but I'm just gonna print let's say not valid space. Okay. So let's see if this works. So we could just do game dot make move, and so we put 2 and 2 and 2, so the bottom right hand corner. We're gonna want to print out the board so we could see if it worked or not. Not a valid space. So let me just go back and double check if everything is correct. Go back to my game class. So make move 2 2. Let's try 0 0. Not a valid space, so might have to do with over here. Maybe let's try. No. Make move. Okay, so if checks that is valid. Checking the board. It has to be over here. Let me just make sure this is correct. So if row is greater than or equal to 0 and row is less than board.length and column is greater than or equal to 0 and column is less than board.length, the board row column is equal to underscore, or there you go. So let me just go ahead and run it again, and yeah, it's working. Yeah, so I had an and right here, so I'll switch it to an or statement. I don't know why I put an and. Okay, so now we see that the make move is working. So now what we're gonna work on is after our move, we want to make sure that the computer could also make a move itself. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a method, and we're gonna call it computer move. Computer move. And then right here in this computer move, so what we're gonna want to do is make another. I'm just gonna make another method, and this method is basically just gonna get a random value, because for the sake of this game right here, I'm gonna make that the computer gets just random values on the board. So I'm just gonna do public move, and I'm gonna just let's say I call it get computer move. I'm just gonna computer move. Okay. Get computer move, and how we're gonna get a random spot on the board is by creating a while loop. So we're gonna do while true. So we're gonna do int r is equal to, we're gonna cast the int, and then we're gonna do math dot random times 3. So this is just basically getting a random value for the row column, and then int c is equal to, we could just copy this right here, and it's the same thing, just getting a random value for the column. Okay, so we're gonna do if checks dot is valid, and we're gonna do just r and c, and then the board is the same thing. So if it is valid, then we're gonna return a new move. Okay, so before I put in what we're gonna return, we're gonna make the move class. So in this move class, so it's basically gonna serve as a class that's gonna save our move. So we're gonna make private data fields. So we're gonna do private int row, then we're gonna make private int column. And then we're gonna make the constructor take both of those data fields in. So private public move, and then we're gonna do the int row and int column, and then we're gonna do this dot row is equal to the row in the parameter, and then this dot column is equal to the column in the parameter. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and generate getters for both the column and row. Generate. Okay, so again, so in this class is just basically gonna be a class that serves as saving our moves. So it's gonna take the row and the column, and then we're gonna have a parameter for what move we're gonna want to do, and just the getters and setters. I don't think we're gonna use the setters, but I just put them in there. So we're mainly gonna be using the get row and get column. So now once we go back to our game right here, so now it prompts us, it tells us that this isn't correct because we made the parameter for the constructor to take the row and the column. So what we're gonna do right here is take R and C, and that should fix it. Okay. So now that we're gonna get random values for the row and the column, we could go back to the computer move and we can say move. I'm just gonna call it comp move, and we're gonna set it equal to get computer move right there. Okay, so basically this computer move is gonna get whatever this returned. So now that we have like the row and the column for the computer, we're actually gonna put that. So we're gonna do board, and then the row is gonna equal to comp move dot get row. This is why I put the getters in the move class. Then the same thing. So comp move dot get column, and then we're gonna set it to O. Okay. All right. So this is basically making the move for the computer. So let's see if it's working. So we're just gonna go over here and we're gonna do game dot computer move. Okay. Yeah, so it's working. So it's getting a random value and it's putting the O to whatever random value it got in the method. So that's working. Okay. Alright, so now that we have this working, we could go ahead and make the next method. And this next method is basically gonna serve as checking if there's been a row victory, a column victory, or a diagonal victory. So we could, it's gonna be Boolean as well. So we're gonna do a public Boolean and we're gonna call it victory check, and it's gonna take a letter, a character, and then a board, which 2 dimensions board. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is, remember in the beginning we made this game checks class, and then right here we made methods to check if there's been a row, column, or diagonal victory. So we're gonna go ahead and call it in this one right here. So we're gonna do if checks dot, we're gonna first do row victory, letter and board, okay, or checks dot column victory. Alright, and then the next one is if there's been a diagonal victory. So if there's been a row victory or a column victory or a diagonal victory, we're gonna want to return true. So we're gonna do return true. Okay, and if that's not the case, we're just gonna return false. Alright, so in order for a game to be over, there has to be a victory, or it could be that the board gets full with no one winning. So the next method that we're going to want to make is like Boolean, and we're going to call it board full. So this method is going to be checking if the board is, whether it's full or not. So in order to check, we're going to do a for loop. 0 less than board dot length to I++. Let me just go ahead and copy this. We're gonna call this J instead of I. And J is as in board do I. Then this last one to a J. So in order to check if a board is full, so we could do if statements, we're gonna do if board. So while we're looping through the board, if we ever run into a empty space, we define was empty by underscore, or what's it called, or by an empty space. Okay, so if there's an empty space, then the board isn't full, so we could just return false. So we're going to do return false, and if that's not the case, then we could just return true. Okay, so now we have victory check, and now we have the board full. So now we can pretty much make our last method to check if a game is over or not. So we're going to do public Boolean, and we're going to call it, let's say, game over, and this is going to take a letter as well, a letter and a board. Okay, and we're going to do if, and then we're going to call this method that we just made earlier right here. So victory check, and we're going to give it that letter, and we're going to give it the board. So we're going to do that. Okay, so if there's been a victory, whether that be row, column, or diagonal, then we're gonna do return true because the game is over. Okay. Alright, and then the next check, in order to check if the game is over, we could do if, and then we called it board full. We're gonna do board full. So if the board is full, then the game is also over, so we're gonna return true. And if that's not the case, then we could just return false. Okay. Alright, so that should be most of the methods. So I just want to double check, so I'm just going to go ahead and change these to X's and see if the methods are working. So this is going to be checking, yeah, let me just do that. So we could do game dot board full. So let's say if we choose 2, 2, 2. Oh, no, we're gonna see if game over. So we're gonna do game over, and we're gonna be checking if the X has won. No, since it's private, since I made it private. Yeah, so since I have the board as private, I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah, let me just delete all this. Yeah, I'd rather just make it inside the game class. Alright, so we're gonna create a method, and we're gonna do public void, and we're gonna call it let's say start game. So what this is gonna do is we're gonna have to make the game run in this method. So one thing that we have to know is we're gonna have to know when is it my turn and when is it the computer's turn. So how we do this is I'm just gonna make a data field of a character, and then I'm gonna call it player right here. So when is it the X player or when is it the O player? So let's say for example after I make my move, it's gonna be the O player's turn. So player could be O right here. Alright, and then we take that same logic and then we apply it within the computer move. So after the computer goes, it's gonna be the X turn, so it's gonna be my turn. Okay, so now that we have that in place, probably the last thing that we need is to check whether since we're going to do a while loop, we're going to want to make a Boolean value. So we're going to go ahead and make private Boolean, let's call it game done. Oh, what am I doing? Private game done, and we're going to set it to false. Because at the start, the game isn't going to be over, because how can the game be over? Alright, so that's why we're setting it to false. Okay, so I think we're gonna call this right here. So we're gonna do game done, and we're gonna set it to true if it is finished. And then the same thing if the board is full. Game done, and we're gonna set it to true. Alright. So now that we got all of the methods in, so we got game checks class ready, move class is done. Now the game class. So what we're gonna do in the start game is we're gonna make a while loop for us to actually play the game against the computer. So for us to input our row and column, we're gonna have to do it with a scanner. So we're gonna do scanner, and I'm gonna call it input is equal to new scanner. Then we're gonna do system dot in. Okay, so I'm gonna have to probably import it. Yep. So after I imported it, okay. So at the start of the game, it's obviously going to be my turn since I want to go first. So I'm going to do player is equal to X. So it's my turn right now. Okay. So we're going to want it to keep running. So we do this with a while loop. So we're going to do while game done while the game isn't over. Okay. So the first thing we're going to want to visualize the board, the empty board. So we're going to want to see where to put the where are we going to want to put the X. So I guess we could also put system.out.println, and we're going to put let's say enter row and column. And then we're going to do it's from 0 to 2. Okay, we're doing from 0 to 2 because in an array it starts off at 0, so it'd be 0 1 2. So that's why I'm putting from 0 to 2. So after we have asked the user to input what they're going to want to choose, we're going to do int row is equal to input dot next int. So whatever integer they put in, and then same thing for the column to input dot next int. Okay. Okay, so I think we're gonna have to make an if statement right here. So we're gonna check if it's our turn. So if player is equal to X, and we're gonna do an and game over. So game over is calling this class right here. We're gonna want to make sure that that O hasn't won the game. So we're gonna do game over, and then we're gonna do O, and then we're gonna put the board. Okay. So if that's not the case, then it could take our input. we're gonna put right here, okay, and then we're gonna want to make a move. So make move, and then whatever row and column we choose. Okay. All right. So now the next, after my turn, it's gonna be the computer's turn. So we're gonna do if, and then if it's O's turn, so it's equal to O, and game over is not true. If X hasn't won the game yet, I'm gonna do board. Okay. Then it could be the computer's turn. Computer turn. I mean computer move. That's what I call it. Computer move. Okay. So that's gonna be the while loop. Alright, and if the game finishes, we're gonna wanna see the board at the finishing board. So we're just gonna go ahead and call print board, and then print ln, and then if the game is finished, we're just gonna wanna say game over. Alright, so yeah, let's see if it's correct. Everything should be right unless I have a bug, but let's see. Game dot, it was start game. Okay, so let's see this. Let's see. Oh, because I think I changed it for checking so quickly. Just change those. Alright, so now we run it. Okay, so we have an empty board, so we're gonna choose. So let's say 0 0. So that chooses, and let's say we choose 2 2. Okay, and let's say we choose the middle 1 1. Game over. Yeah, because I won diagonally, and after I won diagonally, it quickly ends. So yeah, so the O doesn't make a move. Okay, so let me just check if out of bounds, not valid space. Okay, no moves are made. Cool. Let's see when the okay 2 2. Okay, let's do 0 1. Okay, let's do 2. No, let's do. Yeah, you see, if we choose 2 2, it's not a valid space because it's already taken up. Because I already took up that space right there. Let's try 1 0. Okay. Let's try 0 0. Okay, and then 0 2. I'm gonna win. Okay, so I won right here. Alright, see, I'm gonna try to make the computer win just to see. So let's do 1 0. Let's do 0 0. Okay. 2 2. Let's try 0 2. I'm like winning most of these times. Alright, let's check if the board is full. So I'm gonna do X O, then X. Let's do X right. No, let's do O right here. O right here, and then let's do an X right here. I'm gonna put an O. Then let's do a O right here. Then a O right here. So okay, so let's say if we choose third row in the middle. Yeah, game over because the board is full right here. No, there's no winner, so the board is full. So yeah, everything should be working. I just tried to make the computer win, but it's not happening. But either way, if the computer wins, it should also finish the game because of the game over method. So yeah, that should be pretty much it for this video. So yeah, it's working. Ooh, let's see if I can win. Let's see if the computer could win. Nope. Alright, maybe if I choose 2, 1. Okay. Nah, I'm still gonna win. Alright, so obviously the computer isn't that good, but so the Tic Tac Toe game is working. So I made it with these 4 classes. But if you guys want to see me enhance this code and actually make it so that the computer actually puts on a challenge, comment or like the video, and so I can know if you guys want to see that. So I'll make a video. So yeah, I would make a video and making the computer actually be like tough to beat. So yeah, pretty much it.